Hello everyone, this is G and I'm back with a nighttime video. As you can see, the lighting is awful, but when an idea comes to mind, I like to work on it when it comes, because then if I don't, then I'm probably going to lose it. So, I hope everybody's well. It's almost 10 o'clock, it's like 9:45 in the evening here in New York City. I should be going to bed, but like I said, I had a idea for a video, and as grainy as this will look, I wanted to get it out and express my thoughts before I lose them. Right? What's the old saying? If you don't use it, you'll lose it. So here's what I'm doing. I'm using it. So as some of you may know, some of you may have seen it, I made a video earlier today about Akilah obviously having to pay legal fees, quite hefty sum of like $38,000, a little over 38 grand, to Sargon of Akkad for him to recoup his legal fees, mainly his attorney's fees, because of the frivolous lawsuit, or I say alleged frivolous lawsuit that she filed against him because she used a false DMCA claim to pull a video of his down. She claimed it was copyright infringement. He said it was fair use. This was debated in the courts for years. This happened back in like 2016, 2020, so it's been about 4 years now. And the courts, at least at present, have fallen firmly on Sargon's side. Right? They have said that he was within his rights as regards fair use, and that Akilah is basically trying to use the legal system to cause him unnecessary pain and financial harm. And so they're going to make her pay for it, as I think that they should. Right? So I have no issue with the judgment. And as some of you may be aware, especially from maybe other videos, Akilah has been having a meltdown online today, right? She went on this Twitter rant and everything, even trying to sort of shade or cancel the judge who did not find in her favor. The funny thing that I was watching might have been a Viva Frey video, but apparently the judge that found in a Sargon's favor has apparently now been moved up to the Court of Appeals. So now he's an appeals judge, and apparently if she were to appeal this, which believe it or not, I think she will. I think she will. I think that she's that crazy and her attorneys are that spineless. And when I say crazy, I don't mean a medical diagnosis. I am not a doctor. But anyway, I think she's going to do it. Apparently she has 30 days. I think she'll do it because I don't think this woman's ever met a fight that she lost and just wouldn't keep fighting. Or rather, would keep fighting. It's the best way I can describe it is that there's this old Billy Joel song called "Angry Young Man," and there's a line that talks about how the flaw in the angry young man is that, you know, he takes pride in being an angry young person, but he never actually wins any battles, right? And I think the line goes something to the effect of like, there's a place in the world for the angry young man with his working class ties and his radical plans. He refuses to bend, he refuses to crawl, and all this other stuff. But there's a line that talks about how and he's never learned. He's never learned from mistakes, so he doesn't understand how his heart always breaks. That's the part I was trying to get to. But unlike the angry young man in the Billy Joel song, I don't think for a second that Akilah is the well-intentioned blue class hero type, or rather say working class hero, the blue collar. See, this is what happens when you record something and now you get all your metaphors wrong. But I don't think for a second that she's the well-intentioned but ultimately clueless working class hero, blue collar hero type person, right? I think it's a lot worse than just being well-intentioned but not learning from your mistakes and sort of closing your ears to or hiding your eyes to the truth of a matter, like the angry young man in the song. But anyway, on to the point of the video, because it's already been 5 minutes and you're probably wondering what I'm rambling about. So, here's the thing. She had a meltdown online. Not uncommon. But it's some of the things she says in the video. Not in the video, sorry. On her Twitter feed, in this meltdown. That really piss me off, right? And here are some of the things she says. I'm not going to go over each tweet, but here are the few that she says, right? This is the one that starts it off. It says, "Hey, if you follow me on Twitter, you may notice I'm being harassed by a bunch of white men today. That's because I sued white supremacists for stealing my content on YouTube in 2016. While there was no additional commentary, only cuts in order, and it continues on to another tweet. And then she says here in the second tweet, keep in mind the express purpose of this white supremacist was to arouse his horde of 4chan white supremacists into harassing me. And then it says again, of course, all of this is talking about Sargon, right? It says the past 4 years, this person has made racist and sexist harassing comments about me, Trey Melvin, Cat Black, and others. And then she even says, then Carl Benjamin, also known as Sargon, the person I'm referring to, then she mentions his run for office in England and all that. And then she says again, then in March, the very same white supremacist, again, Sargon, she's identified this person as Sargon, right? Decided to countersue for legal fees because I responded to little boys harassing me, calling him a racist, right? In other words, she's saying she was calling him a racist, calling Sargon a racist, and then his fanboys, she's claiming, harassed her for it. So she says in another one, so today I found out that because I responded to a racist on Twitter, I'm expected to pay this man who is incredibly racist and terrible 38 grand because I responded to racism directed at me and all the other foolishness. And she puts up several images, tweets, emails, which in my opinion, don't prove her case at all. All she's doing with this stupid rant, in my opinion, is just making Sargon's case. Like, if he wants to sue her for defamation, or if the judge wants to come down harder on her, you know, she can, or rather, he can. So, I don't think that this little impotent, rant of hers, right? It's like, what is it? The old Smashing Pumpkins song? Yes, I'm speaking in songs today, right? Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage. That whole thing. It's impotent rage, right? And what's worse is that it's just giving Sargon more fuel, but if he wants to, he can take additional legal action against her, which means ultimately that she would have to pay him even more money, right? Because first it's copyright infringement and fair use, then it's defamation, possible tortious interference, because she keeps trying to get information about his his PayPal. I know that he was kicked off Patreon, but like GoFundMe, that's the one, right? So she keeps going after his monetary sources. And again, she's saying all these terrible things about him, which are patently untrue. Now, I'm indifferent on Sargon and his opinions, but I haven't come across anything that would definitively fall into the category of racist or bigoted or white supremacist or anything else. Now, what really infuriates me about Akilah's rant, aside just from the stupidity of it all, but I guess as the saying goes, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. I think that was Napoleon, right? But what infuriates me is that, and I've said this about in other videos in particular about the Vic Mignogna situation from last year, but in my opinion, when you accuse somebody of being racist, sexist, homophobic, whatever the social ill is, right, in an attempt to shame them, turn them into a social pariah, In my opinion, you spit on the graves, right, of the people who sincerely suffered and in many cases died because of legitimate sexism, racism, bigotry, white supremacy, whatever you want to call it, right? Young black men like Emmett Till died because of white supremacy. His killers at the time when he was murdered ultimately got away with it legally because the legal system at the time truly was bigoted and white supremacist and would never or would almost never see it in favor of a black person, right? You have there was a, I'm trying to remember his name. I'm probably going to have to pause for a second and look it up. But there was a 15-year-old, I think it was 14 or 15-year-old black boy decades ago. Like the youngest person to ever die by electric chair, by execution in American history. And he wasn't even guilty. It's not like he was a cold-blooded killer and he deserved it. He was a 14-year-old boy accused of something he didn't do, and he died for it because of the color of his skin. Let me look up his name. 1 minute. One moment. Sorry, everyone. I finally found it, right? His name was George Stinney, and I think I've mentioned him before. But he was born in 1929. He was murdered in 1944. Right, according to Wikipedia, he was an African-American child who was convicted in a proceeding later vacated as an unfair trial of murdering two white girls, right, in his hometown. He was executed by electric chair in June 1944. Stinney is the youngest American to be sentenced to death and executed. A re-examination of the Stinney case began in 2004. When several individuals and Northeastern University School of Law sought a judicial review. His conviction was overturned in 2014, 70 years after he was executed, when a court ruled he had not received a fair trial. And then, of course, it goes deeper into his story, right? But one of the most horrific cases of sincere injustice against a black person, or just against anybody in general, in American history. Cases like George Stinney, cases like Emmitt Till, and many, many, many others, right? Even George Floyd to a degree, although that's more police brutality and excessive use of force, right? And using or misapplying or using what's the word I'm looking for? I guess you could say restraint holds or techniques, right? You want to talk about white supremacy, right? Or violence, unjust violence against black people. There are your examples. And there are many, many, many more, right? Sargon winning a court case that this girl never had a chance in hell of winning. Even before they formally went forward with the case, apparently they had a meeting with the judge, and the judge told her that from what he knew, that his opinion was most likely going to be that although Sargon was, mocking her and critiquing her in the video, that it falls under fair use. And that he was probably going to find that way. So when the judge himself tells you that you're probably going to lose this because you don't have a case, and you proceed with the case and you lose, and now you owe lots of money, right? That's on you. That's not the flaws or the fault of the courts or the judge or the defendant or society at large, right? There's no blame. She did something dumb, and now she's quite literally paying for it. But in my opinion, when you use words like racist and white supremacist against someone whose only crime is that they're ideologically different from you. He's your ideological opponent. He hasn't hurt you personally. He hasn't hurt anybody in your family. You just have a difference of opinion, a difference of ideology. When you go and label someone these awful things, just for that, and here's the thing, it's not just like it was in the heat of the moment, the heat of an argument, out of anger. No. She did this time and time and time and time again because many of her tweets over the years have been referenced in the legal documents and in the legal videos about this case. So she keeps bringing up race and acting as if it's a grave injustice and she was done wrong in a situation where race was no factor and the courts did not do wrong. And in my opinion, when you do that, when you use these words and claim that the system's working against you because of your race and it's not, because there are times, yeah, you know, where like with Stinney and others, right, where the system really is against you. It really is white supremacy and you truly are being persecuted for something you didn't do. And it is an injustice. But when it's not, when it's simply a case of you were too blind and too prideful and too damn dumb to not listen to reason, and yet you're going to use these terms to defame somebody and try to sully their reputation, which is bad enough. Again, I think if he wanted to, Sargon could probably sue her for defamation or some sort of injury to his reputation. And I have to admit, if I were him, I would do it. Right? If my attorney said we had a good chance, I would do it. So who knows what he will do, but if I were him, or if I were part of his legal team and there was a good chance, I'd be like, yeah, we should do that. But when you are the loser in the end, right? And when you can't take the L, and you can't accept that you've lost, and your response is to just throw out these insults, right? And accuse somebody of stuff that they didn't do, that they are not. And when there are so many real life examples of when white supremacy and an unjust system got people killed, and you're going to accuse Sargon of being these things and of the justice system being against you when it is not. You spit, in my opinion, she spits on the graves of George Stinney and what's the word I'm looking for? Emmitt Till, and many others, not just black. I'm using black in this case because she's African American. 1 second. I'm using black in this case because she's African American and she's using race as a factor. But there are many people of many other different races and ethnicities who have been victimized by an unjust system that judge them on the color of their skin and deem them guilty, and in some cases deem them fit to die. So when you take labels like racist and white supremacist and you use them in such a careless way, knowing that these words quite literally have blood on their hands, people have died because of the sincere application of these things, and you use it as just a schoolyard taunt or an insult, that really pisses me off in a way that I don't think I could ever adequately describe. It's like I don't have words. I could speak for an hour, I could speak forever, and I would still never find the words to express how disgusted reading Akilah's tweets makes me, because of how she is using these terms so indiscriminately and just how insulting it is to me. And I, fortunately, at least to my knowledge, have never lost anybody due to, for example, a racist all-white jury like Stinney did or others. But there are people who have. George Stinney's family lost him. because of an unjust system based on race. Emmitt Till's family, many others, right? In my opinion, we have to call out the system when it's wrong, but we also have to give it praise when it's right. And we shouldn't be throwing these type of terms around just because we're having infantile meltdowns online because the system didn't find in our favor. I guess that's pretty much everything that I can say about it. I'm hoping this video made sense, right? But here are the half sleepy midnight, well, not midnight, but evening ramblings of a grumpy New York City woman. So anyway, I hope you all have a good evening or a good day, good night, wherever you are. And I will see you all in the next one, hopefully with something maybe not so serious. I don't know. We'll see. See you around.